Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Do you ever find yourself beating yourself up for past failures or criticizing something that you said or did? We want to use those past transgressions, our errors, our mistakes, our failures, and sometimes even our humiliations to learn, but not to stay stuck. Those errors, mistakes, failures, humiliations were necessary steps in the learning process, but they were meant to be a means to an end, not an end in themselves. That's what Maxwell Maltz said in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics. You have an inner GPS system. When these have served their purpose, they should be forgotten. If we consciously dwell on the error or consciously feel guilty about the error and keep berating ourselves because of it, then unwittingly the error or failure becomes the goal. The error or failure itself becomes the goal because our mind looks for evidence. Our mind thinks that's what we're focused on, so that's what you want. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between good and bad, right and wrong. It doesn't know your desires. It knows what you are emotionally involved with. So if you are so focused on something that you did that you are ashamed of or feeling guilty for, your mind keeps showing you more evidence. It becomes the goal that is consciously held in imagination and memory. The unhappiest person is those who insist on reliving the past over and over in their imagination, continually criticizing themselves for past mistakes, continually condemning himself for past sins. You know, when you do that, you don't really have a good chance to bring into your experience what you love. I'm going to read a little bit more from this chapter on how to utilize the power of rational thinking in Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, because my mentor Bob Proctor used to always say, let sleeping dogs lie. Let the dead bury the dead. Leave the past behind. The past is past. Focus on what lovely things you want, what beautiful things you desire. Feel as if you already have the good. And Maxwell Maltz said, I shall never forget one of my women patients who tortured herself with her unhappy past, so much so that she destroyed any chance for happiness in the present. She had lived for years in bitterness and resentment as a direct result of a serious hair lip that caused her to shun people and to develop over the years a personality that was stunted, crabby, and completely turned against the world and everything in it. She had no friends because she imagined that no one would be friendly with a person who looked so awful. She deliberately avoided people, or worse, consistently alienated people with her sour defensive attitude. Surgery, Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon, but he saw people holistically after he realized that just changing their disfigurements didn't always change their personality. So he wrote the book Psycho-Cybernetics, showing you how to tap into the power of your subconscious mind to improve your self-image and to set and achieve worthwhile goals, not to continue believing that the person who had changed their physical appearance was still looked terrible and still felt terrible. This is a fascinating book if you don't already have it. So this woman who thought she looked so awful that no one could be friends with her deliberately avoided people and alienated people because of her defensive attitude. So Maxwell Maltz used plastic surgery to cure her hair lip, her physical problem. And this woman tried to make the adjustment and to begin living with people in harmony and friendliness. But she found that her past experiences kept getting in the way. She felt that despite her new appearance, she could not make friends and be happy because no one would forgive her for what she had been before the operation. So she wound up making the same mistakes she had before, and she was just as unhappy as ever. This woman did not really begin to live until she learned to stop condemning herself for what she had been in the past and stop reliving in her imagination all the unhappy events that had brought her to Dr. Maltz for surgery in the first place. Continually criticizing yourself for past mistakes and errors does not help matters, but it really perpetuates the very behavior that you're trying to change. Memories of past failures can adversely affect your present performance. And if we dwell on them and if we foolishly conclude, I failed yesterday, therefore it follows that I will fail again today, that doesn't prove that unconscious reaction patterns have any power in themselves to repeat and perpetuate themselves. Maxwell Maltz suggests that it doesn't prove that all buried memories of failure must be eradicated before your behavior can be changed. If we are victimized, it is by our own conscious thinking mind and not by the unconscious. For it is with the thinking part of our personality that we draw conclusions and we select the goal images that we shall concentrate upon. The minute we change our minds and stop giving power to the past with its mistakes loses its power over us. What if you could forget your past mistakes and errors, leave behind all your assumptions that it's not going to work out, and start to act as if what you truly desire is yours? What would it be like? What would it feel like? What would it look like? What if you were happy? What would you be doing? How would you be feeling? How would you know if you're happy? How would other people recognize that you're happy? Your life is changed not through willpower, not through force, not through more effort, but by other ideas. Prescott Leckie believed that it was inherent in the very nature of mind itself that all ideas and concepts that make up the total content of personality must seem to be consistent with each other. If the inconsistency of a given idea is consciously recognized, it must be rejected. So if you decide that you want something, but you start thinking the opposite, your subconscious mind is going to reject it because it doesn't match what you've been feeling, what you've been thinking, what you've been doing. You can examine and reevaluate your beliefs. Bob Proctor used to say, people are not really thinking, otherwise they would never be doing and saying what they're doing and saying. And Maxwell Maltz said one of the reasons that the power of rational thinking goes unrecognized is that it is so seldom used. What is a belief that you have, or a belief about the world, or a belief about other people that's causing you some negative behavior, some negative assumptions? Does something always happen to cause you to miss out just when success seems to be within your grasp? Perhaps you secretly feel unworthy of success, or that you don't deserve it. Do you feel ill at ease around other people? Perhaps you believe you are inferior to them, or that other people per se are hostile and unfriendly. Do you become anxious and fearful for no good reason in a situation that is relatively safe? Perhaps you believe that the world you live in is a hostile, unfriendly, dangerous place. Or some people actually believe that they deserve punishment. Remember, behavior and feelings both spring from your beliefs. To root out the belief that is responsible for your feeling and behavior, you can ask yourself, why? Is there some task that you would like to do? Maybe starting your own business, or leaving a job that no longer serves you, leaving a relationship that no longer serves you, starting an artistic project. Do you want to sing, play musical instruments, paint, write, do something that maybe play sports, but something inside of you says, I can't? Ask yourself why. Why do you assume that you can't? Just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean you can't do it. When we have a deep-seated belief that we're not worthy, not good enough, don't measure up, we automatically talk ourselves out of what we would love to do. Why do I believe that I can't? So here's some profound questions that Dr. Maltz suggests to ask yourself. Is this belief based on an actual fact or on an assumption, a false conclusion? And then he suggests that we ask ourselves these questions. If you have a pen and paper handy, maybe you want to write these questions down and spend some time thinking about them. So first of all, you want to find a belief that you have. It's hard to make money. The economy is going downhill. Life is horrible. I'm never going to find love. I have to work hard. It takes a long time for me to get anywhere. What would your negative belief be? And then ask yourself, Is there a rational reason for such a belief? I know someone who says, people don't like me. People always shun me. I'm always doing stupid things and people blame me for everything. Is that true? Is that a rational? Where did that come from? Is there any rational reason for such a belief? You know, what we think about, we bring about. So if you beat yourself up, if you berate yourself, if you're always telling yourself you're stupid or things never work out, your mind is programmed to show you evidence, to do that, to believe it, to make it come true. I think we want to go in the opposite direction. You want to be loved and prosperous and happy and healthy and wealthy. There might be some negative beliefs buried deep inside that are kind of like a roadblock. So the second question is, could it be that I am mistaken in this belief? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Could it be that I am mistaken in this belief? And what about if you were talking to another person? If you assume that other people are better than you, that you don't match, you don't measure up, you're not good enough, would you come to the same conclusion about another person in a similar situation? If you see someone else struggling, would you berate them? Or would you be empathetic, kinder, allowing the mistake? Would you come to the same conclusion about another person in a similar situation? I think we're the hardest on ourselves. And number 4, why should I continue to act and feel as if this were true if there's no good reason to believe it? Don't just pass these questions by casually. Think on them. Get emotional about them and maybe wrestle with them. Can you see that you have cheated yourself and sold yourself short, not because of a fact, but because some limiting belief? If you examine the limiting belief, it might really sound stupid, it might make you angry. You can throw off a negative definition of yourself if you realize that there's a limiting belief that you've held on to all these years that is not true, and you can get rid of it instantaneously and realize that that was, it might have been a brick wall, but it was actually a block in your subconscious mind that now you can throw it away and feel clear, clean, happy, prosperous, gentle with yourself, allowing yourself, in fact, expecting to make mistakes, to fail because you're learning, you're growing. Growth doesn't happen unless you're failing and learning something and moving beyond. If you don't fail, you're going to stay where you are. And when you fail, failing is not permanent unless you don't get up and try again. So, that fourth question again, if you're writing it down, why should I continue to act and feel as if this were true if there is no good reason to believe it? Now, I don't want you coming up with all kinds of reasons that you would believe in a false doubt, fear, worry about yourself. If there is no rational reason, if you're mistaken about the belief, if you would treat another person differently if they made the same mistake, why would you act and feel as if it were true instead of just letting it go? God has engineered you for success. You were designed to be successful, to experience life, to experience failures and get up and try something else, or try again. When you have a deep desire, when you have something that you truly want, that is meant for you. If you don't have it, you just haven't figured it out. And maybe it's because there is a limiting belief blocking your path. Rational thought, to be effective in changing belief and behavior, must be accompanied with deep feeling and desire. Picture to yourself what you would be like, what it would be like to do and be and have what you really want, and assume for the moment that such things might be possible. If someone else has it, it's possible. If another person is doing it, it's likely you could do it. If someone else seems happy, healthy, prosperous, it's possible. That means if there are infinite possibilities in this universe, it's possible for you. Don't dismiss it. Don't push it away. Don't assume it's not possible. Start to write out, what if it is possible? What if? Maybe if you're deeply in debt, you could imagine you won the lottery. After paying off your debt, what would you do with all that extra free cash? If you're staying loyal to a job, an employer, or a situation in your life that is making you really miserable, what if you left? What would freedom feel like? What if you were doing something you loved? Arouse a deep desire for the things that you want. Become enthusiastic about them, dwell on them, and keep going over and over and over in your mind. A person's present negative beliefs were formed by thoughts plus feelings. When you generate enough emotion or deep feeling about your new thoughts and ideas, and you get excited about what you want, that cancels out your negative feelings. You know, when you're happy, when you're doing something you enjoy, you don't worry about the debt. You don't think about what's going wrong. You focus on what's going right. So when you focus on what's going right, when you give thanks for all the wondrous things that are available, when you sit and dwell on the beautiful things that are possible, you start to generate new ideas. And if you take action on those new ideas, you will experience different results. Yes, you might fail, you might have some struggles, but if you don't move on your beautiful ideas, guaranteed you will stay stuck in the old patterns. If you think about this, you'll notice that you normally use a process worry. And instead of focusing on worry and doubt, you can use a process to change your goals from negative to positive. When you worry, you first of all picture some undesirable future outcome or goal very vividly in your imagination. You don't use effort or willpower, but you keep dwelling on the end result, what might happen. You keep thinking about and picturing it as a possibility, and you play that negative idea, that worry that it might happen. And the constant repetition and thinking in terms of possibilities makes the end result appear more and more real to you. After a time, the appropriate emotions are automatically generated. That would be fear, anxiety, discouragement. Those are all appropriate to the undesirable end result that you're worrying about. Now, change the goal picture, what you truly desire, what you really want, and see how you can just as easily generate good emotions, constantly picturing to yourself and dwelling on a desirable end result will also make the possibility seem more real. And the appropriate emotions of enthusiasm, cheerfulness, encouragement, and happiness will automatically be generated. In forming good emotional habits and in breaking bad habits, said Dr. Knight Dunlap, we have to deal primarily with thought and thought habits. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Remember, we don't get what we want, we get what we are. Focus your thought energy on what you desire. Generate those feelings that you would be feeling if you were already experiencing that, and you will create a wonderful life. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Practice this over the weekend. Get emotionally involved with what you truly desire, and I'll see you back here Monday morning at 7. Thank you.